Right guys, welcome back to another podcast episode. I am joined with MOHSIN and ANNISSA. This is part 2 of the discussion that we had of our first podcast. If you haven't checked that out, make sure you do so. I want to also start off by saying if you are interested in any coming onto this podcast, make sure you hit us up on the email down below. If you want to talk fitness, business, anything, your mom, your dad, your cat, your dog, come on and let us know. Your buggery, exactly. Comment down below your in the email and we'd love to get you on. Cool. Guys, what are you guys saying, man?
Assalamu alaikum, man. All good, man.
How's everything?
Have you done the introduction yet?
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Well, it was done and I said, how you guys doing?
Go on.
How you doing, Lisa? You right?
Yeah, good, yeah.
That's good. So, cool. So we're going to just pick off where we left off last time. We were talking about, obviously, about your guys' story. We didn't have enough time. I don't think we'll have enough time again because you guys came late.
We literally came on time.
Start at 11.
We're still waking
it's
up.
11:30. It's 11:30. So start at 11. Isn't it? But listen, that doesn't matter, innit? So where we left off in the podcast is we were talking about obviously your business journey, and we were just scratching the surface of it. And I want to kind of highlight the main thing I was getting from the first podcast, which I think you were kind of bouncing around the topic, was the struggles that you guys went through in it. Mm-hmm. I think it's a keynote to mention that because obviously a lot of people can relate to the struggles than the successes, because struggles we will go through them, and I think the fact the things that you guys went through to keep the business alive were actually like very inspiring. Do you want to go into like some of the things that that kind of that you had to like go through to? I guess what I'm trying to ask is, at what point did you see the business start growing? At what point did you see business start problems first encountering problems that you had to deal with? That's probably my question.
Problems. I mean, you asked.
There's loads of problems. There's so many years of problems. Which...
I think the problems still haven't finished. I think the question is probably better asked. Which were the problems that were unbearable, and which were the problems? Because anybody who does business will tell you this one thing: no matter how big your business, no matter how successful you are, no matter what business you do, what stage you are in, the problems are always going to exist. Regardless, there's always going to be problems. There's always going to be things that are going to make you scratch your head.
And then when you think you resolved one problem, another one starts. Pretty much.
That's the it. Like if you're doing a business and you haven't got problems, you're not doing business, because the whole point of business is supposed to be fixing problems as you go along. The difference between the regular business problems versus problems which cripple you, which have a mental, emotional, spiritual impact on you as an individual. I guess those are the type of problems that you're asking about, and I think in our personal journey, it was. I think we very briefly touched on it in the last podcast. I think that's when we ran out of time. Was we started from cash flow issues, understanding what cash flow is. And cash flow is one of those tricky things, even when you understand cash flow, you don't really understand cash flow apart from your accountant. But you do understand. Cash flow was the biggest issue, right? What's coming in, what's coming out, what's yours, what's not yours, what you need to be doing, with the cash flow. Should you be investing? Should you not be investing? And in our case, I think there was a very steep learning curve, which was there was cash, which wasn't ours, which we assumed was ours. So, and this was, I'm talking about, we were probably, how old were we at the time?
About 23, 24.
23, 24, with very limited guidance when it came to, just general advice from people. Like, for example, Khana Prep is doing business right now. Inshallah, we hope that Khana Prep will never be in that type of issue. Us sitting around the table, knowing the intricacies and the intimate details of Khana Prep, I don't think we have had yet to experience those type of problems. We've always been, breathing. Alhamdulillah, we've not been drowning in any shape or form. But then we weren't breathing; we were drowning.
So, what were particular issues that really hurt? Because I would imagine 23, 24 years old, you're trickling along. You got your first warehouse space. You're making sales. You got money coming in. You're doing great. we've got £1,000 this week. Let's go. That's 500 in your pocket, 500 in my pocket. We're good. And then unexpected cost comes about. Is that exactly what happened?
Not really. I mean, I don't think we were splurging in any sense of the word on ourselves in any way, right? It was more like, okay, we got £1,000. Okay, let's expand and get this product line in. Not realizing that, okay, we're getting that product line in. That's not going to come for another maybe 70, 80, 90 days. And in the meantime, we've got costs that need to be covered from...
Because of the lead time.
Yeah, so that's another lesson we had to learn was how to manage sort of the stock supply and lead time so that you're not running out of stock for like months on end.
Quite a lot of businesses make this problem, right? I mean, generally business mistake people make. One or two things will happen. You will either overstock and you will have like 6 months worth of stock which will cash your money, which will tie your money in. And if that is not moving fast enough, you've got cash which you can invest into something else. Or you understock and you don't have that, it's all sold off, but you can't bring the stock in fast enough, so then now you've got a period of time where you've got nothing in there.
What's the perfect amount of stock to have for someone that's watching?
I think you can't really give
It's a very tough question. I think you can work on projections once you have a little bit more data, but it's usually stock, you should have stock plus safety plus your lead time. So for example, if you've got a stock and then you have a bit of percentage, that safety stock that you order should ideally be covering your lead time. So if your lead time is, let's say, 4 weeks, for example, making a random figure up, let's say your lead time is a month, you should order your stock plus a percentage on top, that when you're in your safety stock and you're about to place an order, you're just finishing your safety stock, or near about finishing, or just finished it, maybe a few days here and there, and your next order delivery is coming in. Now, I understand that obviously in all businesses that's not always possible. You know, you can have manufacturing delays, and I think people who are watching this podcast will know what we are unaware of the word COVID, and COVID has caused severe delays with most industries, regardless of what business you're in, whatever facility you're in. It's caused delays regardless, right? So those are unforeseen circumstances, and that's where a lot of businesses have gone bust. You know, they've had to bite the bullet. Some businesses have to absorb it. They've managed to absorb it. Some businesses haven't been able to absorb it, and they've just had to close up because it's been such a harsh reality check for them. Not even a hard reality check. They just couldn't compensate. They couldn't come back up again. Imagine you're out of stock for 6 months, 8 months, 9 months.
Yeah.
Right now.
And you got rent.
You got rent. You got cash reserve. Yes, you got government loans. Whatever the case is, what people were taking, but you've got to swim out of that problem. You've got to have a different level of control. Yeah.
So, what was ANNISSA mentioned lead times you just learned about when that issue came up. How severe was the damage done when you found out about when you ordered the stock and you realized that you had to realize that it's not going to come tomorrow? How severe was that damage?
I think at that point is like where we move on to our next sort of point that we want to touch on is that we've never taken any interest-based loans, and we've never gone near it because obviously for our personal and our faith sort of reasons. But it was at that point where we realized, okay, we've literally there's no cash. We need to order stock. Where can we get stock from? So we started borrowing small amounts of cash from family, from friends, and I would like to say that kind of eased off the problems, but in fact I think that made it worse, is because when you get cash or loans or funds from elsewhere and you still don't know how to manage the cash flow, or still don't know how to manage the stock supply issues, that puts you in a worse position because now you're not only in debt, but you've still got the same problems compounded on top. So I think when we were about 24, so this is during the time I was pregnant with Hafsa, and sort of when she was born, it was around about that time we were having that particular issue where we were in debt, like loads of money. I don't want to state the figure, but and I mean, luckily enough, it wasn't like to a bank or we weren't going to have bailiffs come to the door and stuff. But in a way, it was worse because there's people that we knew. So
I think to mention and I'll let you continue the point. Just have to mention that the people that we lent money to, they were very, very respectful. They were very, very polite individuals, and we had a very good experience with them, in the sense that, alhamdulillah, if it wasn't because of them, we probably would have been in a much worse position. Even though it didn't change our position much, but it gave us the little bit of breathing space that we needed. It was big figures. None of them ever asked us for the money back, in terms of have it for 2 years, have it for 3 years, have it for 5 years. Even though we internally between ourselves had given ourselves a deadline for a year, that even though we signed paperwork for 2 to 3 to 4 years with them, our internal deadline was a year, that we need to get this money off the table within a year. Less than a year, we need to get this off the table. Alhamdulillah, I think we managed to do that within a year. I think it was within a year, maybe just over a year. And all the people that we returned them, they were like, no, look, you can keep it. There was no run, no rush. So it was, and I think that's an important part, that, lending people money within a community without interest gives people that level of reliance. And I think, according to my faith anyways, according to, in the Islamic faith, we have this issue of giving somebody a loan to relieve somebody's, relieve their problems. It's considered, and now if I have the capacity in any shape or form to help somebody else do that, I can now empathize with someone's problem a lot more, knowing that what it can do for somebody.
Because you went through it.
Yeah, you can continue with your point.
I forgot what I was saying.
Yeah, I think you were mentioning about the money that we took.
Yeah.
And how it was.
So you just mentioned, so we did manage to pay off, and it was around about this time that we got an accountant.
The first accountant.
Yes, because up until that point we were kind of just
doing it
ourselves.
So did you have any bookkeeping experience?
No.
None at all.
So how you okay, money coming in?
You just have a basic spreadsheet. You just have this
Just basically a
Cost
spreadsheet.
out,
That was pretty much the extent of it. We're like, okay, look, maybe we need to get, business finances are not as straightforward as we thought. Maybe we need an accountant. So we found a person. MOHSIN had a very wonderful experience with this one person.
I think it's important, the people that you surround yourself with, very, very important.
So the experience with the first accountant wasn't good?
No, it was appalling. I put it this way, like the day I got rid of this particular person, I said never contact us ever again. Wow. Because he compounded the problem even more than it was.
Where did you find it?
So this person, we found him online. They were from a very respectable background. I think they had worked for the likes of KPMG, and they had all the right type of credentials, as you would want to say, that you would look for. That
ticked all the boxes.
Ticked all the boxes, and all the jargon was there. But when we sat down with this jargon to understand what was going on, we thought, okay, it's good hands. But there was no communication. There was no real documentation. There was no real paperwork that was being worked out. Which is what we needed. We needed financial direction. That okay, this is the cash that you have. This is what you have available. This is what you don't have available. This is your money. This is your tax allowance. This is this. This is that. X, Y, and Z. There was nothing there.
He was doing none of that.
No, it was just like yeah.
And then in January of that year, he dropped the bombshell that next week your VAT is and your tax and all that is due.
And a 6-figure VAT bill, I think it was.
No, 5 figures.
5-figure.
It was a 5-figure.
Yeah, 5-figure VAT bill.
It was a 5-figure VAT bill that we had
with a week's notice.
With a week's notice, where the cash was physically not in the account, as in.
Yeah.
What?
So that.
So just for context, a good accountant is supposed to help you spread those payments throughout each quarter and be like, okay.
It's not just that a good accountant will let you know which money is yours, which money is not yours.
Wait. So you're telling me the next week, May told you, but by the way, you've got
a 5-figure.
5-figure sum coming out.
Just like that. So
and you had no money in the account?
No. As in, there was money in the account, but there was nowhere near amount.
There was nowhere near enough to cover that bill.
And obviously considering other fixed costs and whatnot, so that just literally, that drowned us.
What was your initial reaction when you heard that?
Oh, I don't want to know. But I do know when I had a conversation with that person, I was like, look, you know what?
Conversation.
Just get rid of this. This relationship needs to end. And
so how did we get out of that then?
That it was around about that time we had to pick up some more money.
Oh yes, okay.
So we actually had to raise, again, collect some more money from a few people, as a loan, and that was some collection that we had to do. Got rid of that, and then it was from that point.
All no interest.
All no interest. Yeah. So it was from that point. It was like.
No, I remember ringing HMRC one day, literally crying on the phone, saying that okay, look, we can't do it, blah blah. I thought, she might take pity on me, be like, okay, we can extend the payments or this, that. She goes, what you can do is take a government-backed loan, and it's got a very, very low interest rate of 1.25% or something like that, and that will, give you that sort of float to pay the bill next week and, carry on. And she would not get it when I tried to explain that that's not a possibility. She's like, well, then, according to us, you're just doing it it's your choice basically whether you want to pay the bill or not pay the bill.
So
and obviously remember, if you miss a tax bill, they add interest from every day that you've missed it. So it was either that day, we couldn't be even a day later. So we were stressed. It was.
So you have to understand that interest wasn't an option at all. It was just not on the table. And
Explain
it was
it.
very tempting. It was
Yeah.
very, very tempting to be able to. There were a lot of interest possibilities, like the one Anissa mentioned. There was a couple of other things that was mentioned through PayPal.
You mentioned the PayPal one.
Yeah, there was a number of options available.
People would call me like every 2
They
weeks.
would call because you know the way it is. If they see that you make payments on time and stuff like that, you would have people. You have some lenders that would contact you themselves. Be like, look, oh, you've got good, scores, whatever the case is. Do you know, hey, take some money, because obviously they get interest and they know that most businesses will be interested in growth. So that was very, very tempting, very, very tempting. But then ultimately, I think we managed to scavenge together some money from a few different people.
I still don't get how he does that.
And then got rid of that. And it was from that point, we had to sit down. I remember very vividly, I would have a piece of paper and I would do my own cash flow figures. I'd sit there, okay, this is coming in, that's coming out, this is coming out. Why is this not working? Do you remember those pieces of paper
Yes.
that we should draw?
And then what, you used to get a piece of paper and write down what?
Yeah, I would just try to work out how do we keep falling into the same position again? Why is it that whenever there comes payments, he's just screwing us over? Then again, we started looking for another accountant, and this time we took our time. And the accountant that we do have now is the very same accountant that we found after that accountant. So she's been with us for 4 or 5 years now, It was probably the best decision that we made in the sort of business at the time, it was daily cash flows that we were getting. Daily, by the minute, we were getting cash flows. By the day, everything figures every single day. Let me just say, I've never seen so much red figures in a spreadsheet, but those red figures were needed. But they were needed. At one point, I was like, "Can you change the font from red to something else?" Because even as a kid, I hated anyone marking my papers with a red pen. I was like, use a green pen, just don't use a red pen. But yeah, so we got through that, and then she obviously built a cash flow system, a proper cash flow system, and then she was more than just an accountant. She taught us a lot of things alongside the cash flow and stuff like that, which helped us build our pragmatic business experience and link it with finance. Probably some of the stuff that you hear from us, when we do Khana Prep, and you're like, well, that's not happening. You're like, why? But that's probably where a lot of that. There are certain conversations, when you do business, and we're all doing business together, and there's experiences that you're having now. Now, if you had another person a couple of years younger than you trying to talk to you about business, you're going to tell them, listen, chill out, relax. There's certain things you can't do, there's certain things you need to do, and that experience is something that's been carrying on. But there were tough times. And I think that is the time where people will either exit a business and be like, I'm going to sell up, or we're going to sell up your massive
You're not going to sell it.
but you're going to just
close it off.
What was your, because I can only imagine the mental trauma you guys were going through. I'm going to assume you just given birth at this point.
Yeah.
Wow. And what was the roller coaster ride mentally? Like how waking up every day, paint a picture of me. How did you feel? Like every day you probably slept and thought it was a dream or something and woke up.
You have to understand, for the longest time we were working, imagine working 12 hours a day. I think I mentioned on the previous podcast. Imagine working 12 hours a day.
It was longer than that.
Oh.
When we used to come home,
Yeah.
go to the chicken shop on the way.
Oh yeah, so that's where the weight gain started from, isn't it? That's where the weight gain started
So we would
from.
finish from
That's
the
where the
warehouse
30
at
kilos came from, man.
1, 2 a.m. And obviously, there's nowhere open apart from these greasy chicken shops.
What far road,
So we would just walk that way.
So 2 o'clock in the night, we'd walk there. There'd be one shop open. So if you know Farm Road well, you'll know it's only one shop that's open at that time. You go there, pick up have the fattest burger that you can afford.
For £5.
For whoever. Me and used to eat that, and we'd walk.
And they'd give us such strange looks as well.
We'd walk home.
We were like the regulars at 2 a.m.
Normally you got at that time, you either got people who are doing late night shifts, or you got people who are cabbing at the night time, where the case is. You're never going to see a young
couple,
Muslim
couple
walking in to have a burger at 3 o'clock in the night, and then walking home, walking down all the way, and then the same thing will repeat. But imagine doing that for a year or year and a half on the trot, every single day, 7 days a week, knowing it's making no difference to the overall impact. So it's I guess some ways you can look at it that you're going from a minus 6 figure to a minus 4 figure.
How do you not dive into insanity at that moment?
Look,
Because a lot of people in your position would have probably crumbled, broke them. Like, how the hell do I get out of this mess?
Do you want to answer that? Or?
No, you go.
I think the coping mechanisms for us were a little bit different. As in, alhamdulillah, I felt like the faith that we had. I think I was studying at the time as well, isn't it? Yeah. Let's not forget that I was studying full time at this point as well. I was doing my Islamic scholarship at the time, full time, and that almost acted as a breathing space, for me, and it gave us the necessary patience, the necessary resilience that you cannot give up your ethics.
Was it a form of escapism, almost?
No, I think it was just consolidating what was already in the head. It was like, okay, I'm going there. We're understanding morals, we're understanding ethics, and we just can't give them up. It's not something that's a possibility to give up. You just have to keep going. And what other choice do you have? What other choice do you have to make it work? And for anyone that knows me, I don't like saying no for an answer, or I don't like accepting failure. So I have to give it the best shot I physically can give. And then even then I probably won't give up. But okay, when you revisit this, maybe we're doing something wrong. And there was a lot of things that we were doing wrong, and learning had to be done. I think that year was more than a learning curve, more than anything. It was a steep learning curve. And I think to achieve anything, you have to have a steep learning curve.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy, man. So where did you see? So you're in this hole. You're digging, it's digging deeper and deeper, and you're looking up and like, how the hell do I get out of this mess? When did you finally start seeing a little bit of progress? Like a little incline in what you were doing? How did that look like?
I remember there was a conversation, right? I think this was just after Hafsa was born. Hafsa was very young at the time, and obviously naturally, Anissa didn't get what most females would get. She didn't get her, maternity leave, as you want to call it, because what was maternity at the time? Like, as in, who were you going to go to? Which meant if we went to maternity, we would go to a half an operation. And we couldn't afford to be in a half operation. So it was like, Hafsa was a day old, 2 day old, 3 day old, or 4 hour, however many days it was, we were at work.
Wow.
And it definitely, that's when things hit really hard. That's when it got really, really sour, almost bitter, the pain. Because before it was like, when you're on your own, just running on, doing your thing, just wherever, running around. It's like, you have no dependence. Now you've got a baby that's like, a few days old, and now you've just realized you've got to run around the same level with zero stoppage with that child around with you. So that's when things got really, really raw, really raw.
So raw in what?
Raw in the sense that it was like, I think it became a bitter experience.
For who?
For everybody.
Okay.
For everybody. It became a bitter experience for Anissa, it became a bitter experience for me. It was a testing time for our relationship in the sense that if we hadn't had the relationship that we had before Hafsa was born, that probably for a lot of people would have ended their relationship. Because it was a very, very tough, difficult time. And you had to, that's the time where you rely on somebody 101%. You can't have any level of not trust. You can't have no level of lack of honesty. You can't have a lack of this person's not gonna pull through. You are fully relying on one another 1,000%. Me and you can sit here all day long and say, you're my good friend, this and that, blah blah blah, yeah. But you're only gonna truly appreciate how good of a friend I am when things hit the fan.
Yeah.
That's when you're gonna understand. Okay, you know what? Let me understand what this person's made out of. How much he's gonna pull through. In a relationship, that just compounds, right? When you're in a relationship and you're having a good relationship, alhamdulillah, and then testing time turns up, that's when you realize how the years that you've built up, the times that you've built up, then it's put to a test.
Can you give us a little bit of context on how hard these times were? Just a little bit. Because I know it is a personal matter, but I feel like the people listening would benefit if they knew the severity of not exactly what's going on, but just a little taste on what you actually experienced along that bitter time where you really depended on each other. Sorry, the voice is still effed, bro. I don't know what's going on, bro. I feel like I'm about to cry, but I'm not.
No, you're gonna.
I might cry, but I don't know. But
it was just. There was it wasn't unheard of that there was no food in the house, right? That was just that it is what it was. Yeah, so that was an obvious one. There was many occasions there was probably, and I think at the time me and you were in touch at the time as well. Yeah, we just touched base at the point where we were just getting close at the time. So there was no food in the house. Couldn't cover basic expenditure. And it was just, yeah, it was what it was. I mean, yeah, there was a lot of problems. There was no financial support in terms of, you know, food. There was nothing in terms of, I mean, Hafsa, when she was born, let's just say that most of Hafsa's, you know, childhood clothes were probably given as gifts. Alhamdulillah, you know, that helped us at the time. Is sometimes you think that had that not happened, you know, what she'd be wearing. You know, it just happens to be when, you know, you have a baby, people give you gifts and stuff like that, and you'd be surprised at how much that can help. That can give people a breathing space. So yeah, there was a tough time. There was a very tough time, and then even when Hafsa was a little bit up,
How old?
when baby was just like eating a little bit, you know, she probably survived on like 10 chicken wings or something like that. You know, we just scavenge whatever 1-2 pounds that you had in the house for the whole day. You look forward to some wings. Buy, you know, a box of like 4 pounds, like 12 to 14 wings, whatever. Just
Eat that as a family.
Just eat that as a family.
Yeah.
And that's what it was, and that's kind of the physical impact it had. So that's where we gained the weight, because anything that we did put in our mouth, cheap food, you know, crap food is cheap these days, which is quite weird because that food is cheap, and then you try to look for healthy food and it's just overpriced. Yeah. That's what we survived on, and obviously it had a few health impacts on ANNISSA and myself. You know, obviously I don't think if she wants to share it, it's up to her. For me personally, I had some, you know, digestive problems just due to the sheer stress. Yeah, it got worse. It just went from bad to worse.
Yeah.
It went from bad to worse. But you know, it was. I think for me, when I look back at it now, I look at it as that Allah, you know, God put us through that test to kind of see what we were made up of. You know, what is the true integrity? You know, because alongside that, we still have to carry running the charity organization that we run, kind of still studying. You know, you still have to stay, keep, you know, remember your Lord and stuff. So these were all things that were tested at the same time. So I think it was, in some ways, what doesn't break you just, you know, makes you stronger. So alhamdulillah, you know, there was a lot of benefit that came out of it, I guess.
No, I agree. It's like every time you think that, you know, you've reached your sort of breaking point, and then it's like another thing turns up. You're like, okay, you go through that, and you're like, okay, now this is definitely a breaking point. Like, okay, now here's another thing to compound it. And it's like Wilson said, it kind of, for me personally, it taught me a lot of resilience. Like, I didn't think that I was able to endure some of the stuff I did endure. Like, I had postnatal depression for most of Hafsa's first year. And there was like, it didn't feel like there was any sort of light, but at what point did it feel like there was something happening? Like, I remember for our anniversary, Hafsa was like 6 months old or something. What did we do?
Yeah, we had about 3-4 quid.
So we saved for like 3 weeks, right, for our anniversary. We're like, okay, it's our anniversary, you know, let's try and make it a little bit special. And we literally went to Chicken Delight, got two number 6 meals, and then went to the park and like sat on the grass and like ate the burgers.
And that is the anniversary I remember the most.
And that's the anniversary we remember the most, because Hafsa was there.
She was just
hands
down was probably the best one.
It was her first time sitting on a swing, I remember. She was wearing like that blue.
Yeah, that blue skirt with the red bow.
With a red bow in her hair, yeah. And it was just like little things like that. It was like Mohsin said, I feel like if our relationship wasn't as strong beforehand, like it would be very easy for someone to just be like, okay, forget this, I'm out of here type of thing. Like, what is this? But it's like we kind of just kept each other laughing even through those periods of time.
And I think we can't discount, obviously, we managed to, like, people around us kind of picked up on it. You know, ANNISSA's parents, my parents.
So you didn't tell anyone?
No, we did it as in.
So when I said we're private people,
especially.
So you were suffering in silence.
Yeah, especially when it
Not
comes.
really. I mean, it wasn't like we're like, oh, we're trying to martyr ourselves and look how strong we are. We're suffering in silence. It was more like, this is our problem. This is
you can't let it spill over to everybody.
Yeah, like why do we have to, like, you know, naturally parents just worry anyway. Then if
and they were worrying, and the thing is, they weren't stupid. You know, parents they can take an inkling, right? You know, somebody's coming to your house. Especially if your parents, you know, they're gonna walk around the house, right? I mean, unless you forbid your parents from walking around the house. They're going to walk around the house. They're going to open up the fridge. They're going to open up the cupboards. It's just what you would do, right? I mean, who doesn't do it here? And, everybody does it. And obviously they would open the fridge and they would pick up, right? There's nothing here. There's nothing there. Whenever they'd ask a question, oh yeah, I haven't done the shopping yet. I was going to come later, whatever the case is. But sooner or later, it just takes two and two. So, wherever they could, if they could, they would drop food. At the time, we'd have to leave Hafsa with my mother at a young age, which wasn't a problem. But the problem was she was very young. Hafsa wanted her mother, so we had to drop her. And then mom would just leave like a bowl of food, maybe in the pushchair or something like that. And it was like that would be like a feast. This is banging. And it just came, but it would, things like that is what that get you through. Things like that, they get you through. You survive, and really you truly appreciate. You take every day as it comes. The littlest things that make you happy on an everyday basis. That one conversation, that one little thing over here, that one little spark over here. And I remember it was not many months after Hafsa was born. And obviously ANNISSA was, she wasn't in the best position herself, obviously, naturally, having given birth and then having to do what she needed to do. It came to the point where ANNISSA was like, I'm gonna give this project, another couple of months. If not, we're gonna call it quits.
As a new business.
Yeah. And I was like, look, that's not gonna happen. We've made mistakes for this many years. We can't expect there to be a fix within this many weeks. We need to keep going, but I understand, what you're saying. We need to give it a proper, grilling down.
At this moment, how long were you into the business? Like, how long from the day you started and all those stories of selling to now, like when you dropped the news?
It was about 4.5 years.
4.5 years of being in the hole, making no money, and then you literally said to MOHSIN and be like, I'm gonna give it 3 more months.
3 more months, yeah. I remember it was like, I think it was September or something, and then I was like, I'll give it to January. Let's go through the Christmas period.
What year was this? When you said it's in September?
2018.
Wow. 2018.
So it was like, it had been 4.5 years, but you have to say it wasn't 4.5 years of business. It's 4.5 years of learning and a lot of mistakes. You have no background, no mentors, no nothing. It was just like you just kind of get on with what you need to do on your own type of thing. And on top of that, there was generally the family pressure that you should go get a job and stuff like that, which I appreciate. Why they would say that.
Why didn't you get a job?
I don't know. Business just felt the most natural thing.
Because how people...
Clearly at that point it wasn't the most natural thing, but it just felt like the most natural thing. It was like, what, we're going to make this work.
Because people at that moment, I would assume the logical thing to do would be, let me get a part-time job to at least cover the expenses. Why wasn't that an obvious thing in your mind?
Because it required full-time hours to fix the problems it had.
Okay. You couldn't take time away from.
You couldn't take time away, and
that would just extend
the problem.
Yeah.
And I was studying full time too, so there was that problem. Not problem, but there was that factor taken into consideration. So any time I did have, I needed to give it to the business.
Yeah.
And I think it was that time when that time pressure got in with a good accountant on board. We really sat down and restructured as many things as we could.
This is when ANNISSA gave you the news.
Yeah. So, but we restructured it.
But I feel like it was good for me in a way, because it kind of gave me like, rather than living each day not knowing, okay, there's like an end point. It's just the same thing over and over again. For me, it was like, okay, I know I have literally like 3 months to make it, like really like make a massive difference, and it kind of gave me that push to sort of kind of mentally. I started to sort of feel a bit more refreshed in that sense as well, because it was kind of like, either way, I'm gonna know the outcome in January. Like, it's whether we continue or whether we don't continue, there's an end in sight type of thing. So that kind of helped me sort of kick my brain back into gear and start like focusing.
For me, I think it was the complete opposite that motivated me. It was like, for her, it was like the end, and for me, it was like, listen, there can't be an end. So I was like, I've got to make it work, because if she turns out in January, so then there's going to be a problem there, because she's going to want to stop and I'm not going to stop. So for me, there was not ulterior motive, but there was something else that was motivating me. And listen, we've got to make these decisions right to get this through the door properly.
So okay, explain me from September to January. Well, what changes and what changes, first of all, answer that, and then secondly, at what point did you start seeing a little bit of a rise?
I think the thing was, I can't say what changes because there were just too many.
Okay.
There was like pretty much revamping the entire business from scratch. Rethinking the product, rethinking the structure, rethinking the pricing, rethinking the margins, rethinking delivery, rethinking branding, basically rethinking everything, whatever capacity.
You basically started from scratch, yeah?
Whatever
Pretty much, yeah.
And that's why we like when I consider that year, I consider me and Anissa both consider that's when we started doing business.
Okay.
That is a year where we consider one of our businesses that's when we started that process, because up until then there was no business happening. It was like you kind of just flipping things around, trying to understand what works. But it was that point where we kind of brought together everything that we had in our minds, plus the bit of direction that we had from an accountant, and we're like, okay, now we're really going to make, now decisions need to be made. And those type of decisions were made. So decisions that we were nervous about making, we made all of them. And then from September onwards, month on month, from September to October, October to November, November to December, December, like month on month, there was a development, there was a growth, there was
We started for once showing the right signs on a consistent basis. So it wasn't like, okay, this week was good. Actually, yeah, this week was not good. It was like week on week. There was growth. There was growth, but obviously minute growth. But
there was enough to understand that the changes were taking effect.
Yeah.
And we were doing something.
And it's the same thing. Like for example, I remember me like talking about the business. I mean, you had a similar conversation with Khana Prep. Like when you say to me about Khana Prep, like, oh, we've been doing business for this long for Khana Prep. And I was like, no, we haven't. We've only been doing it for this many months. And you're like, no, but what about that? I'm like, but that you can't really consider that business because this is when business really started. Did you remember? You remember this conversation we've had, right?
Briefly.
About Khana Prep, like we talked about when we've been doing business for X number of years for Khana Prep or Khana Shana. And I was like, well, no, we haven't done it for that long. This is when we actually launched. Yeah. Because we can't really consider that to be
the business.
The business. The actual business is when it started, right? And I think you can see that Khana Prep has, it's been received much better than it is. You can see things are starting to turn. Yeah. You can see people are speaking the right direction. Things are being done in the way they should be done. Is it perfect? No, it's not. Do improvements need to be done? Yes, they do. Yeah. But is there improvement? Almost definitely. Yeah. And that's what business is all about. People think that when you do business, it's like you reach a level of perfection and you're going to be satisfied. That doesn't exist in business. That does not exist in business. Like there is always a level of that. You're like, oh yeah, well we fixed one thing, these 10 things are wrong. And you fix those 10 things, well these 10 things are wrong. Well these 15 things are wrong, these 10 things. There's always that level of anxiety that I've got to fix all these problems. And that's what keeps you. If you're doing business and you have nothing to fix, you are not doing business. You've definitely got problems with your business. Yes, you might be doing really good business, but if you've got nothing to fix and you've got nothing to improve, you have to ask yourself the question, why don't I have nothing to improve? Like one of the things that me and Anissa always discuss when we're doing business, my concern that I always bring to the table is like, well, you're telling me, you telling me as in generally when we're talking about business, that you're telling me that there's nothing to fix. There can't be. We need to find something to fix. Because the fact that we can't find something to fix means we must be leaving some big holes, somewhere. So that's just business for you. Business is always about finding problems and fixing them. Finding problems and fixing them. And the more you fix, the better you get. Are you going to be perfect? No. It's not going to happen. But it's going to be, it's being able to always, oil that machine, always making sure things are moving in the right directions. And that's the main thing, I think. Direction is the main thing.
And I would assume when you first made a little bit of the green in your spreadsheet come along, there was almost like a relief, a euphoric moment, almost, you could imagine. How did that feel?
I think at that point, for me personally, it was like, I was always a bit nervous. Like, even when things were going well, I'm like, okay, this sounds too good to be true. Like, there must be something we're missing. Like, there must be something else going to go wrong.
PTSD.
Like,
yeah, there was a lot of that.
And I think even till today, we kind of both still suffer from that kind of complex where it's like, if things are going well, it's like, but why are they going well? They can't possibly be going well.
There's a lot of that. There is a lot of that at the moment. Where even then,
I think a lot of that anxiety also stems.
Especially for me, Annissa's a lot better than I am right now. As in, she's been able to come out of that anxiety quite strong. To be in all honesty, for me, it's still, I still in many ways act as if I am still in that position.
Which is a bit good because it helps you get that motivation.
I think
it keeps us on our toes, but it's a bit like
it's
a little bit, yeah.
Like it keeps. I guess you either call it motivation or it's just like there's a level of anxiety always in my head, but not so much for Anissa anymore, which is good. We need somebody like that because if there's two of us, I think God knows people are going crazy. But for me, there still is that problem where I'm always pushing to make sure that doesn't happen again, if you get what I'm trying to say. There's always that little bit of,
I mean, I can imagine like 4 years of trauma to now, I mean, alhamdulillah, we're in one of your many illustrious offices in the building that, mashallah, now you guys own. Your business is doing well. But I would imagine you never forget those times. Like I remember when
you can't forget those times.
I mean, I remember when with Khana Prep, even early on, I had a lot of issues with the business early on, and I still suffer from PTSD from those days because I don't want to go back to those days. I think it's the fear of those days and not going back to them, which kind of drive people on.
But the fact that you went through those days is positive in that sense, because now you know.
100%.
I got a different perspective.
Not to do.
Yeah, exactly. This is the biggest thing. I think a lot of not a lot.
If you're not hurting business,
then you're not proper business.
Then you're not proper businessman. Like as in, it's a fact. Like as in, I think that's a litmus test. Like you're gonna have a problem somewhere down the line.
A big problem.
It depends. Look, some people are bigger than others. Like for example, for me, a small problem can be big. For another person, a small problem can be nothing for them. It's each person's own capacity. But regardless, if you don't go through a struggle, whether it's business, whether anything in life, like if you don't go through it, like how do you know? For example, here's a question: how do you know your relationship is really good if your relationship hasn't been tested? How do you know your knowledge is sound if your knowledge hasn't been put to the test? How do you know you're a good sportsman person if your sportsmanship hasn't been put to the test? Right? Anything that you do in life, if it hasn't been put to the test, you can't really truly say you are something until it's been tested. Right? There has to be some level of litmus test. You get what I'm trying to say? Yeah. So I think for business, in the context that we're speaking about, you have to go through some tough times to be able to understand what you're made up of.
And just for context now, I don't know if you want to, you obviously don't want to go into too much figures or details. I mean, I don't know if you want to, if you don't, that's up to you. But your business is doing well at the moment?
Yeah, the business is
same business.
Yeah, alhamdulillah, the business is doing well, and the way we ascertain well might be different to other people when they do well, right? For us, businesses is a means to support some of the or mainly the charitable projects that we do. That is the focus. Provided that we can continue to support those projects, we're doing well.
Was it 7-figure enterprise now?
I'd rather not say.
Oh, fair enough.
Yeah, those are things I've always kept private, purely because those figures make no difference to me. Provided that we can support the charitable projects that we can continue doing, that's the main thing. Yeah. That is absolutely the main thing. If that was to be impacted, then I would say we're not doing well. Okay. Right? If that's not impacted and we can continue and that remains the focus, then we are doing well. Any effort that I'm doing here, I'm here in the office working, it's all with it's all with a focus in mind. It's not for me, it's not for ANNISSA. Well, I can't speak for herself, so I'm sure ANNISSA will speak for herself for that. But from my perspective, at the very least, I believe, like I had this debate with my students recently. Is it better to be rich or is it better to be poor?
I was there.
Yeah. That was on a smaller scale.
Okay,
we had a 4-hour debate.
in
our that was obviously like a link up that we had. Okay. But in the class, that we had a 4-hour debate with the students. Is it better to be rich and to be poor? Right? And we went to the pros and cons because there's, which one's better? Right? Obviously, we have a religious standpoint on this, and with arguments on both sides. But the point is that if you are gonna have money, and forget religion for a second because the viewership is not all necessarily religious. If you have money, that money is accountable. You have to be accountable for that money. Like a lot of people say, well, money changes people, and I always say to them, well, money doesn't change anybody. Money just amplifies who you really are. So if you're a really, really good person at heart and you don't have money, yes, you can still show your goodness to other people, but when you have money, it amplifies your goodness. The ability to do good, you can just do it on a bigger level. If you're bad, but no, I'm not saying I'm judging anybody. If you're evil at heart or you've got a dark energy inside you and you have a lot of money, that darkness is just magnitude. It's the money doesn't talk to you. Money doesn't go in your brain and changes you. What it does to you, it just makes you emphasizes and kind of makes it bigger what you can actually do with inside you, and that's the reality, right? So when people say money changes people, money didn't change the person. That's what the person was anyways. Now is this more obvious, right? Is this more obvious? And I think that's an important money. You have to be accountable for money. Like we believe, and our personal belief, and I think it hinges onto our religious belief, which is that if you have money, that money is not in reality yours. That money is to serve the people and to serve the community and serve those in need. That's the purpose of money. But how much do you really need? Like, let's say I can buy this blazer for X amount of money, and I can buy a much. Like the difference is not gonna. The difference might be in quality, and you should see quality, and you should dress nicely, and you should act nicely, whatever the case is. But the point is, what is the positive impact you're having around you? How are people benefiting from money? Are you just sitting there absorbing all the money? Are you spreading the goodness? Are you benefiting other people? And that, for us, I think, is always the focal point. Always the focal point is the charitable efforts that we can be part of. That's the most important thing. And that's how we measure success. And I believe that a large part of our success is not a success. A large part of our goal has been that. So when we were in that dark time, we were like, okay, if we don't do business, then how are we going to support the charitable projects? Because we're responsible for them. We need to make sure that we've got things available for it.
And just out of, and I know a lot of people do a lot of social good that are religious and not religious, but a lot of people go over getting funding from governments and government schemes. Why were you so against that?
Government scheme in what sense?
They would get government support, government funding. In
For
terms of, if you want to start like a charity, it's common that charities go through government funding because they don't have any funds coming in, or donations to raise finances to do the charitable goods or run the events or whatever. You guys didn't go down that route.
You can. We haven't explored it entirely. Yeah. You can do that, but it's never going to be.
Yeah, they're quite selective. It has to be for certain projects or certain industries. It's not like what you're saying, like you set up a charity, you get 100k from the government. Like it
is a large part down to your own enterprise.
Why did you not want to go through that process?
We hope that we will. I mean, it's not we have actively chosen not to do that, but the main thing is for us is like a professional reward, right? Investing into charity, we're investing in reality in our life, right? And we also believe in the afterlife, so we're investing in that too. So that's our main focus.
Fair enough. Well, cool. I think it's been a great discussion, man. It's been insightful for the most part. I think we touched on a lot of touchy areas that I know you were a bit hesitant to get into, but the reason why it was good for you to open up in that sense, you guys both, because it gives people that someone might be watching this well and truly in the same position that you were once in, like on my days I'm in debt, or on my days my business is doing bad, or whatever the case, I'm not making sales, or whatever part of life that they might be in. They might be looking at and be like, this is an example of what determination, commitment, a lot of faith, a lot of discipline can hopefully one day get you. So thank you so much for opening up.
I just want to mention something there, but I just can't help it. But there's in Arabic there's a saying, or it comes from the Quran, that with every difficulty there is ease. So anybody who's going through tough times, if they look in the right direction or look in the right place, they will find coping mechanisms. Coping mechanisms don't always have to be drugs, so they don't always have to be doing things that are immoral. They can always be things you will find that ease. And yeah, I think that's the most important thing. I think even for a quick thing for the Khana Prep audience listening to it, obviously Khana Prep is a business that us three around the table that are directing. And a lot of people, I feel that an enterprise is a difficult thing, right? People see the meals and they think, the bigger. It's a very difficult enterprise. Business is a difficult enterprise. There's a lot of things that go down, and I've noticed that just from the Khana Prep audience, most of the audience is perfect. They give a lot of positive vibes. They give a lot of love and a lot of support. But then you always get the odd few people here and there that will always drop those lines. Like, oh, okay, these guys are not doing this right, or for example, they're not this, they're not that. And I think we appreciate that. I think we appreciate when people criticize us. That's what helps us improve. If anybody ever had our first ever menu versus the menu that's up live now, there's a massive improvement.
It doesn't even look the same.
There's a massive improvement there. And a lot of people, are, I think somebody said, this is a halal meal prep company. They can't even show it. We're a halal meal prep company. I mean, you can tell by the name. You can tell by. I mean, look at us. you can tell the people sitting there.
Look at who's on the flipping panel, bro.
And a lot of people have kind of, a few people have mentioned comments here and there, and I felt like the need to clarify on a podcast like this that, we work with the greatest integrity possible, and integrity is at the core of our business. We try our very, very best to make sure that Khana Prep, delivers the very best food with the very best quality, with the very best ethics. And I would personally apologize. I would pick up the phone personally and apologize to any customer who feels like they haven't received quality, they haven't received taste, they haven't received, they've got integrity from us.
I've done so.
And I know you've been on the phone to them.
Yeah.
I think we are delivering, and we're going to deliver, carry on delivering. I think people need to show the love. So many good meals are going out there. If you like the meals, leave us a good review. Let us know how you feel. Because it is a small company. It requires all the love. It requires all the, the support that we can get.
People get, sorry to cut you off, but people get it misconstrued. People think we've got 100K on TikTok and think we're flipping making millions of pounds. That's far from the truth.
Yeah, so that's that. Like, as in, people think that, they can just write little comments on social media or wherever, right? And it's like a massive faceless corporation behind it. But no, they don't realize there's actual individuals behind it, and you don't know if someone might be having a bad day.
There's literally 3 people working for Khana Prep, and they are on this table. I don't know where you guys.
And if one of us is having a bad day, okay, mainly me. If I'm having a bad day and I read a comment that's kind of putting us down, it's a bit like
people
really,
think that we've got like 17 employees.
And if it's a woman, then that's even worse. Like, what happened to women supporting women? Like, it's just.
This is why you two read comments. I don't touch comments. I don't
read them.
I have like some morbid fascination of reading every single comment about us, and I get
a very simple rule from the day. Even any of the business I've been involved in, I will look at the pages. I will never read comments. I just don't do it because I just need to know when I sleep at night that I've dealt with things with integrity. If I feel personally that I've not dealt with something integrity, I'll pick the phone up and I'll speak to you guys and I'll be like, listen, I don't feel this went right. We need to fix this problem. Or likewise, you guys will say the same thing. Integrity has to be part of the business, and I feel like we deal with business in the most integral way possible, right? And I think that's one thing I will definitely say, that we don't do things in an underhanded way. Even our QC process when we're delivering the meals to people, right? Even though we haven't rehearsed what we were going to say here, if I ask you the question that if we were sending the meals out, right, what is the one condition that we have the meal can't go out?
If the meal is not complete or it doesn't meet our standards, it's not going out.
It doesn't go out.
Yeah, it doesn't go out.
It doesn't leave.
We literally called up customers yesterday and be like, hi, unfortunately, your meals weren't up to par our standards. We will send you a fresh one.
Exactly. And that is it. As in, we'd rather not send the meals out if it doesn't go past a QC check. I'd rather be delayed and maybe the customer gets a refund for their order, or delay the order, than be like, that order's going to leave the warehouse with not the quality.
Yeah.
And I think that needs to be appreciated. But on a more positive note, guys, I think we've got guess what? We've got another menu coming out.
Yeah,
we've just signed it off. We've just
pictures are getting taken today.
Pictures are getting taken today. The tasting has been done, and I'm telling you, listen, the meals are just getting better and better. They're just getting better and better. They're just getting better. And I think I'm looking forward to those meals.
Yeah.
They're looking forward to me. I had some of the leftovers meals yesterday. The tasters, because you filled my whole fridge up. So I was like, yep, I'll take this one. And I'm telling you, they taste better even the day after. I think the taste gets proper absorbed. I don't know how you explain that, but it tastes better the day after.
But yeah, no, we've got 8 new meals coming out soon in the next, hopefully, couple of weeks. We'll make an official announcement. And yeah, guys, thank you so much for supporting us.
And last thing, if anybody, I know you already mentioned this, but if anybody is in fitness, PTing, if you're a motivation speaker, if you have anything on the mental health, physical health, anything nutrition, body, well-being related, get in contact with us. We'd love to have you on the podcast. And it doesn't have to be a business. You can be an individual that's got a great story. You can share with us if you've lost a lot of weight, if you feel like you've just started your drop region. You don't have to have lost weight. If you just feel like you've just started your journey and you want to start the documentation with us and you want to come on the podcast and tell people why you started to get healthy, contact us, drop a comment on the YouTube channel, email us, contact us on social media, and we'll arrange a time. Come down here. All you need is a 45 minutes to an hour. Jump on the podcast. I would love to have a chat with you and share your story.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you guys for giving the time up to have a further discussion. And yeah, we'll catch you in the next one.